Welcome into the Georgia Vote bonus panel here on 11 Alive Plus. Joining me as always, co-anchor Faith Jesse, Howard Franklin, Democratic strategist, Deanna Harris, Republican strategist, Rahul Bali with WABE, all returning members of our political roundtable. So thank you for being here. Rahul, let's start with you because we have the new legislative session coming up really fast. This is the time of year where you blink and you go, oh my goodness, the state capitol's full again. It starts in January. What are the big topics a smart watcher of Georgia politics should be on the lookout for to be the driving themes in the new year?
First of all, the state budget. And look, I'm a state budget geek, but you know, some of the numbers that are floating out there is there may be $900 million in Medicaid cuts and $500 million in SNAP cuts, food stamps. What is the state going to do? Is there a backfilling and not backfilling? And what is the purpose of the billions of dollars that are in the rainy day fund in reserve?
The state surplus you're talking about.
Yeah, the state surplus. I mean, there's going to be a discussion about what do you do with the $14 billion in reserves. You had lawmakers last week talking about, hey, what do we do with the Georgia Lottery Reserve? Could that go to something? So I think those are some of the discussions. And then real quick, you've heard about affordability, that whole conversation. I think you're going to see lawmakers kind of focus on that, whether it's property taxes or elsewhere.
I think that's really interesting, too, because that's a big national topic that's really boiling down to now the states, right? What are we going to do with that? And in our show, one of the legislators said, hey, especially to the young recruits that are now in, you can only do as much as the majority party will do. So, Deanna, let me ask you this, and Howard, we'll bring you in, because I'm sure you can interject as well. But this issue, especially the Medicaid cuts, will impact Republicans.
Sure.
So is this something that is going to be a bipartisan measure passed? Or are Republicans going to say, this is what we're going to do, and we're going to go with it?
Well, that's very difficult to say, right? Because you have to remember, this is an election year. So everyone's going to have a grand stance, and I guess it just depends on what's more important, winning your primary election or being able to win a general election.
And there are a lot of people under the Gold Dome this session who are running for something.
That's
a lot of people are
correct.
running for lieutenant governor, a lot of people looking for that kind of jump up one rung in Georgia politics.
Yeah.
Howard, let me ask you this question, and then we can circle back to Faith's question there too. But while we're talking about the dynamic of trying to legislate, while many of the legislators are trying to run for office, how do those cross currents play out?
I mean, you know, Deanna's right, but first things first. You got to win a primary before you can win a general election. And I imagine we will see a lot of red meat, but I think it will take on maybe a different tone than we've seen it in previous election years where constitutional officers are up on the ballot. I do think affordability is going to ring true, and I think there's going to be a lot of different approaches to making, you know, living in Georgia more affordable through the lens of the entire political spectrum. So you'll see a lot of different proposals that look great on a mailer or on a television commercial, but that may never see the light of day or never make it to a governor's desk. So I think we'll see probably more activity than we tend to see in the second half of a biennial. But I don't know that we'll see many more bills get signed when the session's ultimately done.
Ideally, the tax cut, of course, the income tax cut would be something that is going to be like top priority. But they also have to find a way to substitute those funds that they are going to cut, right? I don't know that they're going to do the whole thing, right? That's huge. But maybe if they can chop away at it a little bit this coming session, that'd be a big win for the entire, run of governor and lieutenant governor. But then I also see, like he said, this could just be red meat that they're feeding to the voters, and the bills actually never get signed. That happens. I've seen it in several midterm elections.
Yeah. And Rahul, I know you want to jump in. Let me ask you this question as well, because it may dovetail. Governor Brian Kemp, this will be his last session here. He exerted a tremendous amount of political capital to get tort reform over the hill last session. How much of an influence is Governor Brian Kemp going to have this time around?
It starts with the budget, obviously. I mean, if the governor, one of the important things the governor gets to do is actually set what's called the revenue estimate, which is as high as the state budget can go. He sets that number high. There's a lot of room to work with. He sets that low. That then you know where to. And then his State of the State address is going to be really important because he'll lay out what's going to be really important to him. at that speech. So I think, I would not expect the governor is going to be shrinking away just because it's his last year.
I'd agree with Raul, but I'd also say, and you see this in administrations that are sunsetting at every level of government, he also wants to have a great highlight reel. He wants to be able to say, hey, I left the state in great financial footing. I left X number of dollars in the rainy day fund. I don't know how much you'll see big swings at that, $14 billion surplus at this late stage of his tenure, because you also want to let the next, presuming that he wants to support whomever the next Republican nominee is for governor, you want to let that person make determinations about how to spend the money that you set aside.
And it's really interesting, too, because this is possibly why he pushed tort reform so much last session, because not only what you just talked about, but you do have so many people on the ballot. People tend to. You mentioned the governor's race. I want to talk about District 14, Marjorie Taylor Greene. We do know that starting next year, she will no longer be a member of the U.S. House of Representatives. Somebody maybe from the Gold Dome will be looking to take that seat, right? But she could also potentially get into a race, potentially the governor's race. How likely do you all think that that could happen?
It's probably a better question for Deanna than for me, but I think she's edged, mysteriously close to that race. She's, criticized the field of Republican candidates in it. She seems to have definitely gotten a new lease on political life and been much more outspoken.
Aligning
about
herself
things.
closer to women as well.
100%. Like it's very interesting. A lot of folks across the country are watching it, but I think, like Deanna said earlier, it's hard to know what's in the minds of some of these folks. I think one other thing that is worth watching is what do disclosure reports look like at the end of January. If disclosure reports don't look, if Burke Jones is lending himself money instead of raising more money, or if all these folks decide they're staying in the General Assembly, giving up 3 months of the capacity to raise money, then maybe she sees an opening.
Yeah.
Well, but who says that she's limited to just running for governor?
Yeah,
There's still a Senate seat that could be open. So that's just a level up from,
It won't be open, but there's a Senate seat.
Well, okay. Yeah.
How likely, Deanna, from a Republican's perspective, how likely is it that Marjorie Taylor Greene does decide to jump into one of these races?
Well, I think she has the political bug, so I wouldn't count her out for sure. If I was any one of those people who are running for either governor or Senate, I would look and see how much money she has, because she is one of the top congressional members that have been able to raise small dollar donations. Yeah. I think she was at like $8 million in small dollar donations.
And that's an indicator of grassroots support.
That's correct.
Right?
And Raul, she has national name recognition, which could mean big dollars depending on wherever she wants to run, correct?
But everyone who asks me what she's going to do, I genuinely say, I don't know.
It's up to Marjorie Taylor Greene.
But you don't. And you can't dismiss that there's also 2028.
Yep.
We have a Senate race here. And there's also the national platform in 2028, whether it's, president or vice president. You can't dismiss that either.
A President Marjorie Taylor Greene. We'll have to wait and see. On that note, we are going to close it here on panel. Thank you so much for being here with us. We will see you back here next Sunday at 11 for another edition of the Georgia Vote.